Last time in Company of Heroes 2, we were advancing through Stalingrad and generally now taking advantage of the fact that we can blow things up from a distance to blow things up from a distance, which made life quite a lot easier. The problem was we didn't lose enough troops and our commanders were very angry, especially when the player character survived being crushed by a building. So in order to make them happier, I've now lost all of my troops in the next mission at the Siege of Leningrad, so we're going to kind of start this mission again. Although not literally starting again. I just sat back in our base for a while, gradually making more guys in order to prepare another assault. The thing was, while I was doing this, the AI seemed to pity me and started sending units over to make the assault itself. So this is good, we're back in the game playing itself mode. But I thought, seeing the AI spamming units in here, maybe I should help. And you can see the enemy's front line's actually been cleared out by some allied artillery somewhere off to the left of the screen. The artillery actually took out quite a few of the enemy's defensive positions by using their conscripts to get line of sight and then firing away, and it's still happening right now. So this ended up being much easier than expected. Now our second wave can go and take this diminished position easily. What I need to do now is go down our side of the river and clear out the crossing points our allies are supposed to be using where they haven't managed to get a foothold on the other side. With this method we should be able to make the entire battle look like it was all me, because my forces will occupy the other side, but I only got there because our allies helped, and that's the perfect strategic setup, of course. Anyway, I take out a machine gun near the objective I was supposed to be taking, which completes the objective. Now we have a new part of the mission. We need to go and capture a headquarters slightly behind the front lines. But I thought, well, I might as well go down the riverbank and do what I was planning to do anyway. And this is going to be super easy, because we're doing this technique. We just have something look ahead of us, see a few infantry units, and then mortar them to death. As long as the enemy don't move very much or have heavy tanks, this will work against everything. And we even take it to the next level because the game gives us 3 free self-propelled artillery guns, which can do very much the same thing, just shoot into areas you can spot with other units and generally be out of range of the enemy. In this case we get plenty of misses trying to fire onto the backside of a slope, but then a mortar shell takes all of the enemies out, so the mortars will not be upstaged by these big fancy looking guns, it seems. So now we just sit around and absolutely bombard the enemy's headquarters location. We're not going to bother going to it because by this point in the game I was wise to the campaign's tricks. If I go and actually take that headquarters, it's going to spawn loads of enemies, everything will probably get hectic immediately. So the best idea is to not complete any major objective too fast. You might as well max out your troop count, repair vehicles, max out your stored resources and things like that before tipping a final objective over the edge, so that you can be as best prepared as you can. And I'm pretty sure there's no downside to doing this, because while the enemy are occupying the rest of the map, they're all kind of deactivated. They're not going to do anything until you trigger the next part of the mission. Having a few issues with one of my mortar teams there. They actually stayed doing that for a very long time and I forgot about them, so we're just not going to be using that mortar team. And yes, once I went forward to capture the empty enemy headquarters, it was attacked by a wave of enemies. We just have to kill a bunch of them and survive for a while. The infantry waves they send in aren't going to do that well because we have at least one functional mortar team somewhere that's firing at them, plus a sniper team and all of our artillery guns. We've even set up a heavy machine gun on the capture point essentially, so as they come and stand here to cap it, they get shot to pieces. That works pretty well. And a couple of petrol bombs will clear out the stationary enemies as well. So that's all well and good until they start sending in tanks, because our army is super not prepared to deal with tanks. We've got all of this anti-infantry stuff, and while like the mortars and the artillery can do something against tanks, it's not that good against it. And you can see we actually do get cleared out. We almost lose the point but just barely take it back. And it was the artillery that eventually destroyed those enemy tanks by just spamming them at close range. But then another wave comes in, and this time things are a bit worse. You can see I tried to use one of my self-propelled guns to stop the enemy taking the point. They did take it. I thought I would fail the mission, but actually we just have to take it back within a time limit, so that's nice and forgiving. We don't even really need to do that, because our current goal is to just take out the waves of enemies, and they're there on the capture point, so we're going to do that before we actually retake it. The problem is I've been doing so much frontline micro that I haven't been re-recruiting, so I only have about half of my total army available at the moment. As it happens, it's enough because we've got a sniper on the front line gradually killing all of the infantry, and we do take the place back. So all's well that ends well. Then I build more units, and the entire map is revealed. All we have to do now is take out 2 enemy bases somewhere. I think this was the first mission where the enemy were also attacking my base at the same time. Luckily my reinforcements streaming out will deal with that. I left a few units behind from then on, because infantrymen kept appearing back there somehow and attacking our base. I wasn't paying too much attention because I was just making sure we have the mortars getting to work. Now that we're back on the offensive, we can go back to the reliable strategy, find out where the enemy are, and wait for them to die. And it still works. This capture point on the right hand side of the map puts us slightly above one of the enemy bases, and we can get close enough with this sniper team to see their main garrisoned position. We have to destroy that building to complete the objective. Our sniper is just standing there gradually killing everybody inside, and I'm guessing because they're scripted to just defend that location, they're not going to do anything about it, and my mortar teams can move up there as well to speed up the process and take out the building. Meanwhile, they are now attacking my central position, which I'm defending with just a pile of various different units that are somehow holding on. What I need to do is push forwards a bit. There's a side objective to take the point right in front of me. My attacks do not go very well though. They've got a few static emplacements here, and this flame truck that just kills all of the infantry I sent up to take the capture point. So we're just going to keep re-recruiting and spamming our way forward. I still don't believe the enemy will re-recruit all of the static units around the map. So if you keep running at them, you should win eventually. I don't think there's any penalty to doing it in the most brute force possible way. There is a particularly brute force solution to this mission, because when it says destroy the German strongholds, it means just bring down the buildings that are highlighted as strongholds. You don't have to capture them or anything. I had presumed we had to do something there, and that's why my infantry are up right next to it. But now that we know that, we don't actually really have to go and assault them. We just have to kill a building, which you can do from quite far away. As you might have noted, this destruction of the stronghold prompts some AI units to attack some nearby enemies. That didn't go very well, but what it did do is distract the enemy for long enough for me to take the sub-objective point. When I was playing, I didn't realize what this did, but it says on the left there it's extended my sight range, which is handy, and is actually relevant for my new strategy. Because now that I know all I have to do is destroy the German stronghold, we don't need to go there. We've got 2 howitzers on the map. Howitzers can fire anywhere onto the map, I believe, as long as you have line of sight on a location. So we just had to get somebody to look at their stronghold, order a bombardment on that point, and then wait. So suddenly, before my troops even get up to it, the stronghold is destroyed and the mission ends quite quickly after this. The Germans retreat. The siege of Leningrad is over, and overall it's been a success. The sideways flashback, second order flashback, continues because the guy who just told me that story about Leningrad has another story, this time about a squad that was clearing out a village nearby, I presume. And they had an issue with a Tiger tank hiding in a shed that pops out at an inopportune moment and starts blowing up a small tank convoy. So we end up left with control of a few infantry units, and we've got a bit of a challenge stage here. We've got a few units that aren't particularly good against tanks. We've got the heaviest armoured tank in the game, I presume, the Tiger, and we have to defeat it. It's just kind of driving around the town, so most of the time we can't even see it because of lines of sight. What I was doing is trying to prepare positions by slapping down mines in various places, and having infantry units spread out around the town, not necessarily to do any damage, but just to keep an eye on things and hopefully see it eventually. I prepared 2 main locations where I wanted to fight the tank. One was off on the right in a courtyard, and one was at the south end of this village by a church where I have a captured anti-tank gun ready. I was about to make one final preparation, and that was putting mines on the left side of my anti-tank gun because there was a road leading down to it. And you can see the tank was coming down that very road, and my engineers are now running out in front of it still to put the mines down, so we'll quickly redirect them. I still thought maybe we can use these engineers because you can plant demo charges, and because the tank stops, I was like, I'll quickly put a demo charge on top of it while it sits there trying to fight my anti-tank gun. Looks like 2 of the engineers died in the process, and then unfortunately the tank did drive off while the charges were being planted, so that didn't work. At least it stops and allows me to shoot into its flank. The engineer story ends poorly because when I tried to reselect them, I accidentally clicked on the detonate button and they were destroyed by the charges. So that didn't go all that well. At least the enemy is letting me shoot the anti-tank gun into the flank of the tank, but it's not doing very much because it's a light anti-tank gun against a very heavy tank. We can do this forever though, because we can spawn penal battalions using our little ability, and the penal battalions can keep picking up the anti-tank gun after the Tiger kills the crew. It does kill the crew in short order, and then we lose line of sight on it, but we can see it's still there because it's pushing debris around in the fog of war, and there it is. We can also throw these anti-tank grenades, which do something, and they have a kind of guided aspect to them when if you throw them and then the enemy moves out of range, the grenade just self-propels a little bit to go further than its normal range and still hit the target, so that's nice. I've got loads of mines in this courtyard where these infantry are, and I'm slapping down more mines on the main road, but actually we don't really need that because the tank's kind of hanging around towards this bottom area. We've recaptured the anti-tank gun and now we can shoot into the back of it, which is pretty nice. It starts reversing towards me, and then for whatever reason it decides to stop. So now we have an okay situation. We've got a few guys wasting their ammunition with rifles, but the anti-tank gun is hitting the rear armor, the weakest part. At point blank range, the turret is ominously rotating. It fires right into the face of one of my infantrymen. He survives though, because that's just what this game's like for some reason. And we just keep plugging away, gradually reducing its health with that anti-tank gun. I even tried to be so cheeky as to go and put some mines under its tracks in front of it while it was distracted shooting behind itself at the anti-tank gun. You can see the engineers getting to work on that there, but it's too late. It seems this is a multi-phase fight. After taking down half of its health, it automatically retreats to a new position. On the way, it does actually trigger some of the mines I set up earlier, so that they weren't all put to waste, although it doesn't reduce its health by the looks of things. I suspect it's invincible while it's in its retreating phase. So now we go to the other side of the map to fight it again. This second fight, well, it ended up being similar to the first. You can see the Tiger is kind of just sitting there. I guess in real life, the Tiger probably has poor visibility, so maybe we could generously say that's representing this. They might not be able to tell if we sent loads of infantry to go and surround the tank, if they can only see out the front or something, especially after it's been damaged in the previous battle. They eventually notice that we've got an anti-tank gun right next to them and are shooting into them, but their tank does not rotate. It just attacks us with the turret a couple of times. We then up the ante by bringing in a second anti-tank gun, and that's pretty much the fight. It does occasionally fire back at us, but aside from that, it didn't seem very interested in surviving. The same can be said of the support crew for the anti-tank guns, who were willing to stand there and fire their rifles at the tank as well. I don't know if the tank is literally invincible to small arms fire. Maybe it technically does some damage or something. I thought that was going to be the end of the mission, but no, there's a final phase where we are the tank now. We capture the tank and then have to repair it to full health in order to bring it back to the lab for analysis or some such thing. The twist is, the Germans appear all over the place and occupy the village, and the place we need to get to is on the other side. So now we need to battle our way back to the start of the mission essentially with the Tiger tank and stop it getting blown up. For starters, we're just going to sit around and repair it while we defend against German attacks. I had a few units still sitting at the start of the village, so they're going to be fighting the Germans at the same time. From cover as well, that probably works quite well. We have to hold off a few waves of infantry at that airfield, and then we carry on forwards. I suspect you're supposed to be at least a little bit clever at this stage, and maybe go around the edge of the village or something. But what I wanted to do is drive right down the main road through the centre, the fastest way to the objective. The thing is, they've got some tanks there, they've got guys with rocket launchers, plenty of infantry, and an anti-tank gun as well behind sandbags right in the middle of the road. There are also, as we'll learn as we go forwards, some mines that have been put on the road too. What I decided to do is mainly rear attack the enemy. I just left most of my units over here sitting around, occasionally looking forward to see where the enemy still were, while I'm going to concentrate my attack from the south. you can see that we're stepping on landmines on the road and my first squad of infantry disappears because of that. At least it's stopping the Tiger getting hit by them later, so perhaps a worthy sacrifice, because of course we can just keep spawning these infantry units down here. We're quite near our spawn point, so it's very efficient. We've also got a bit of a standoff going on the main road. One enemy soldier, hip firing an MG42 at us, stands there trying to defy our advance. I suppose we're firing an MG42 back at them from the top of the Tiger. This is a brave stand, and it looks like we're missing him every time. This guy has specced into his luck stat. Every shot lands on the floor around him. Eventually though, we do manage to kill one enemy soldier, so the Tiger clearly is a powerful vehicle worthy of being captured. So far, I don't think we really need to capture this thing. We've worked out its weakness. It's not very good at anything. I discovered now for the first time, even though I should have known it earlier, that petrol bombs are really good against buildings. When the enemy are sitting in all of these buildings with their rocket launchers, they're super vulnerable to just having a petrol bomb thrown in there, because once the building is on fire, units inside just lose their health way faster than they do by getting shot. So that was pretty effective. We cleared out a bunch of buildings. As for the tank on the road, upon closer inspection, not very threatening at all. It's actually a self-propelled gun, a Stug tank that can't turn its turret, but it's been bagged in place with some fortifications, so it actually can't shoot us unless we drive and park right in front of it. That's fine. We lost more and more men to mines, but even with a lot of the mines being taken down, I did take a cautious route with the tank and drove on the snow beside the road to go to the objective. We also fought some stuff while the tank was driving off, but that doesn't matter in the end. The tank eventually makes it to the objective off screen somewhere. And there we go, we've captured a Tiger. Maybe we can do something a bit more effective with it than the Germans did. Now our second order sideways flashback is over. We're now back into the original interrogation scene, where our guy explains that after being fired or whatever happened from the military, he is now a journalist who is going to be following the Soviet push towards Germany in the next year. So that's the reason why our guy is still there and these missions are still happening in flashback format, I suppose. This time he's not commanding the troops, he was just watching or was writing about it afterwards or something. The overarching plot is getting increasingly tenuous, but I suppose it doesn't matter. I think they might have got bored of their having a guy being interrogated plot device. Now they just want some more missions. Starting this one off, we have to take two locations close to where we start, and you can see I've already, right off the bat, set up a mortar team in the corner of this field because it's relatively close to the objective. All we have to do is see it, and that's pretty much the objective complete. I build up an army ready to attack, but we don't need to use it. The enemy force is gone over there. Here's me trying to reverse this scout car very fumblingly, as the enemy looked like it was about to fire an anti-tank gun shell in our direction. But no, that was all fine. And here's us doing it to the other objective point. The scout sniper takes a cheeky look, got too close there and got shot at, but it's all fine. Once we know that those sandbags are where the enemy is standing, they're going down. That anti-tank crew goes down as well. There's a very nice feature of the game, in that when you hit an enemy in the fog of war, it reveals that bit of the fog of war for a moment, so you can see if your shots into the fog of war are damaging things. I think it might be a bit fairer if you had no idea whether your shots were landing in the right place so that you could move around and stuff. Not that the AI would do that, but you know what I mean. There is though an actual counter the enemy used to this strategy. They sent in a plane to shoot at my mortar team. As it happens though, it barely does anything, so we're fine. Maybe because I moved slightly just before it started its attack. So we capture the relevant point. This begins the next phase of the mission, where the title of Radio Silence comes into play. One of those planes takes out our communications equipment, and the gimmick this introduces is not very much actually. Normally the game would warn you if a plane is about to attack you, or when the enemy is sending parties to attack your base. But with the radios down, these things will just suddenly happen. You can see it happening right here in fact. This time the base attacks are a bit more substantial than a couple of missions back where it was just the odd squad. Now it's a few squads, a squad of squads if you will, so I can just spawn some more stuff in my base to help out. we're not going to be too threatened by this just because of how these base attacks work. What they appear to try and do is go and stand like directly in the middle of your base, which isn't a particularly good place for them to stand. So by just having a few units remain in the base for the entire mission, we should be able to always at least have a no-cover shootout with them. It does happen quite a lot. This is like 40 seconds later, there's another pile of enemies in my base. I can micro it quite well because I don't need to micro the front lines. My advance is just seeing the enemy with the scout sniper and then looking back over there sometime later and the enemy won't be there anymore thanks to the forward mortar crews. The base attack is kind of petering out because they're focusing on shooting machine guns at our buildings and our shock troopers are just submachine gunning the enemy down at point blank range. So that's all going okay. Moving on, I swing around to the right hand corner of the map where there is an icon with a radio tower on it. So this is where our sub-objective comes in. We can restore radio communications by capturing that particular location. It's just not really on the way anywhere, so I suppose you could just plow forwards with the mission without doing this. But you might as well. It was defended by various static things that did not react when the mortars fired at them, a running theme at this stage. They did though have a couple of their own mortars down there. I counted that by firing into the fog of war at roughly where they were, and we could tell when we'd killed them. Looks like those planes are still causing some shenanigans back where our main force is stationed. We were also being attacked here. I don't have any footage of it because it doesn't matter, but some infantry waves were coming in, which is why I had all those units set up around that perimeter back there. As for the radio tower capture moment, we're going to do it with this scout car. They've still got a mortar team here, but I thought if I drive to point blank range and machine gun them down, that might be fine. Turns out the machine gun's not really strong enough, something else we've already seen in this part. But a mortar shell does fall at danger close range and kill them, then another one falls. Looks like it's not doing too much damage to my own side there. And the radio tower will now be captured. This just means the game will tell me slightly in advance of when the enemy are going to attack my base or when the planes are coming along to shoot up my formations. Doesn't really matter too much. So we'll leave it here for this part. There's not that much more to this mission other than the ultimate apex of the scout sniper and mortar combination strategy when things get a bit too ridiculous for me, and we're going to retire the strategy basically because it's too good. So after this, we'll try out some other things.